From the classroom to the workplace, we work, we work. When we see the complete picture, we work in the classroom towards our future. We work.
Hi, I'm Corey King at the Barbados Lead and Power Company, where my job deals with the everyday application of physics and mathematics to the electrical engineering world. Here we deal with a variety of different types of technologies ranging from substations to metering to overhead line construction. All of these different applications actually are still based on mathematics and physics. We have reached a point where we need to transmit and distribute electricity across the homes and businesses across the island. For this, we use overhead line conductors as well as underground cables. You may have noticed that as you drive along areas such as Sandy Lane, Rolling Hills and Fort George Heights, that you do not see any overhead wires. This is because those conductors or wires are actually buried beneath the earth. This is a more costly capital expansion, but it does protect the network from storms and hurricanes, and that's why some people prefer to have an underground development as compared to an overhead development. Conductors are primarily made of copper as well as aluminum. Mostly they're made of aluminum today because copper, because of its weight as well as its cost, is no longer as favorable. Some wires have insulation and some do not. When you look above, you will see different conductors at varying heights. The larger the conductor, the greater the carrying capacity. This is also done to protect the public from danger, because the larger the current and the higher the voltage, it makes you more susceptible to being injured. The cables themselves are spaced at a particular distance apart so as not to create any flashover. This goes back now to the dielectric constant of air. For example, if you were to actually touch between two wires, you would actually become a conductor, as you'll be touching two different potentials. This is similar to when a bird on a line touches a conductor. For example, you will see that a bird can stand on the line and not be harmed. However, if a bird should come in contact between two lines, for example, when they flap their wings, they actually bridge the gap between two conductors, and their body then acts as a path for electricity to flow. This is why sometimes you may see a bird dead at the bottom of a pole. And therefore, it's similar to why we try to keep human beings away from these high tension wires, so not as to create any harm or injury to that person. When dealing with bare conductors, remember the equation E equals V over D, where E is equal to the electric field, V is equal to the voltage, and D is the distance. This is especially important when dealing with bare conductors, because if the bare conductors come too close to each other, the air, which is acting as the insulator or the dielectric material between the two conductors, will actually break down, because the voltage would actually exceed the dielectric strength of the air. All materials have a dielectric strength. The dielectric strength is just the material property or physical characteristics of the material. So for example, rubber is a good insulator, copper is a good conductor, wood, fiberglass, metal, all have different dielectric strengths, and therefore their ability to withstand electricity or voltage is dependent upon this physical characteristic of the material. And that's why we have conductors and insulators, as each material has its own dielectric property and makes it better for one use or the other. Earlier I mentioned that aluminum and copper as being good conductors. This means that a conductor has low resistivity. For a given voltage and resistivity, you will actually obtain a particular current rating. This is the use of Ohm's law, which is known as V equals IR, which transposes to I equals V over R. When current travels through a resistance, electrical energy is lost in the form of heat. Remember that the power equation is equal to I squared R, which equals heat losses. If we are to minimize resistance, we can therefore minimize our heat losses, hence why good conductors have very low resistance. Another equation you may be familiar with is R is equal to rho times L, which stands for length, divided by A, which is the area or the cross-sectional area of your conductor. Rho is the resistivity property constant of a material, and L is the length of the conductor. From the equation, you can see that by choosing Rho, which is the resistivity, and you make this as small as possible, will result in a smaller resistance. Copper and aluminum have small rhos, or small or very low resistivity, and this is what makes them a good conductor. As you get into electrical installation, you always hear about upsizing a conductor. So for you who may not necessarily go into electrical engineering but may want to be electricians, always remember to reduce your voltage drop, you're going to have to use a larger conductor. And it all stems back from this equation of whereby you're trying to balance length, resistivity, and the cross-sectional area of any conductor. So oftentimes when you're having voltage drops, you actually increase the size of your conductor to mitigate against that voltage drop and actually boost the power to the customer. Once electricity has reached your home, we now start to talk about power. Power for your home, power for your business. Power is equal to V times I, which is voltage times current. From this equation, you can see that by increasing either V or I, you get a larger power output. However, if we were to increase I, which is the current, this current will actually cause heat losses, as we mentioned earlier. We do not want to have greater heat losses because this is actually a loss to the customer as well as to the company. So the only way to actually achieve more power would be actually to increase the voltage. Now the voltage in your home is 115 or 230 volts. In the neighborhood, it may actually be 6.35 kV, which is really 6,350 volts, with K standing for kilo. However, to actually get this voltage safely into your home, this is where we now use another distribution component known as a transformer. You may be familiar with the transformer from your classes as either stepping up or stepping down. In our case, we are actually stepping down this voltage from 6,350 volts to 115 volts in your home. This is so it's safe that you can actually use it for your appliances. How does electricity get to your home or business? At our generating station at Spring Garden, we actually generate at 11,000 volts. Earlier we have mentioned having the ability to transmit power over long distances. So though we generate at 11,000 volts, we actually use a step-up transformer to step the 11,000 volts up to 24,000 volts. This then therefore enables the electricity to be able to travel over a longer distance. So we transmit from the generation station at Spring Garden to the number of substations across the island. There are approximately about 16 substations across the island which serve the different villages and communities over Barbados. Once the 24,000 volts reaches the substation, we now step it down to 11,000 volts. The reason for this is that we no longer need to use such a high voltage to travel this shorter distance. This goes back to where we mentioned before as well in terms of the height of the conductors on the poles, whereby the higher voltages are at the higher distances, at the taller distances, which enables public safety and keeps you out of harm's way. So as we transmit now from the substation to the neighborhoods or the villages, once this electricity reaches the area, we will then step down to 120 volts, and this is the transformer can that you would normally see on the pole. There are some businesses or industrial customers who actually use 11,000 volts, and in this case there's no need to use a pole top transformer. So just to go over the process again, from the generation station to the substation, we transmit at 24 kV. Then from the substation to your neighborhood, it travels at 11 kV, but then once it enters your home, it's going to be stepped down further to 120 volts. And this is the normal process of transmitting electricity across the island. Overall, the power to your home is measured in watts or kilowatts, and at the utility level, we do measure it in megawatts because of the great power that we transmit. All of these characteristics have to be taken into consideration when designing any type of electrical system. So if you happen to be a designer, you have to look at your voltages, your currents, the types of materials that you use. You may do that for your home, but here at the utility, we take all of this into consideration when we're designing power to be distributed across the island over the electrical grid. In summary, everything that we have discussed is math, physics, and somewhat chemistry based. From the calculation of your line conductors and calculations of your resistances, your voltages, these are all based on mathematical principles as well as the physics behind them. We did not go into much about the actual construction of poles and the transformers, but these all are still based on these different subjects. I don't want you to think that only math and physics can be applied to this branch of electrical engineering. There's also computer engineering, there's microelectronic computing. These are all branches of the electrical engineering field. So by actually getting involved in the sciences, math, physics, chemistry, it does provide an avenue or a visa to a very wide and diverse career. I've been fortunate enough to work primarily on the metering side as well as the transmission side, but there's also other areas such as substations, there's cabling, there's transformers. So you just don't work in one area, but you work in a very diverse area. And as you talk to different people across the world, as the global village is getting smaller with the advent of the internet and WhatsApp and Twitter, stuff that you guys probably use every day, the world is so small that you can converse with people across many nations and actually have varied discussions on all the latest technologies. Electrical engineering is I like to say, a passport or visa into a very rewarding and entertaining world.
The workplace we work. When we see the complete